This is part 23 in a series of videos on how weird the Marvel Universe would be if John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1946. After the alien invasion of 1962, Arno Stark reveals himself to his adopted brother Tony and asks him to stay at Stark Enterprises to backwards engineer alien technology and help the government build a space force to defend against future invasions. Tony cancels his plans to go to Vietnam to show off his repulsor technology to the military, and he doesn't become Iron Man. Later, he messes around with some alien armbands the government found, and he becomes entangled with a Kree soldier named Tel-Kar, unbeknownst to his brother or anyone else in the government. Iron Man 144 tells us James Rhodes was in Vietnam and met Iron Man a mere half hour after he fought Wong Chu in Tales of Suspense 39. But if Tony never goes to Vietnam, what happens to Rhodey? He gets attacked by Vietnamese soldiers and manages to hold his own. The first issue of the 1994 War Machine series tells us Rhodey was good with machines. Probably not Tony Stark good, but probably good enough to MacGyver some kind of weapon out of the helicopter engine. This holds off enemy soldiers long enough for somebody to report to Wong Chu and tell him what this American soldier has built. While Rhodey's ingenuity evens the odds a little, eventually he's overpowered and brought to Wong Chu. Even though Rhodey isn't a famous weapons inventor, he still made a weapon that was impressive enough that Wong Chu figures with better equipment and supplies, he can make something truly outstanding. Rhodey hits on the same idea Tony had. He can make something to help him escape. Wong Chu brings in Professor Yinsen to help Rhodey. Because Rhodey doesn't have Tony's expertise in transistor technology, they won't be building something as advanced as what Yinsen helped Tony build on Earth 616. It's still impressive, but it's a bulkier, less mobile affair. On Earth 616, the only reason Professor Yinsen sacrificed himself was because Tony needed time for the electricity to restart his heart. Rhodey doesn't have that problem, so he blasts his way out of here without Professor Yinsen dying. Yinsen gets safely back to his daughter. Yay! Though Tony Ho won't be inspired to become a superhero in a decade or so. Boo! Rhodey returns to his unit. Tony Stark probably kept his life as Iron Man a secret to protect his friends and company from attacks. Rhodey doesn't have that problem and tells his commanding officer what happened to him and the cool weapon he and Professor Yinsen designed. Word quickly gets sent up the ladder and Rhodey is sent home where he will work with Tony Stark on Earth's defense. Rhodey has mixed feelings about this. I got the feeling from this War Machine issue that while Rhodey probably considers himself a patriot, the main reason he joined the military wasn't for love of country, but to get out of this rough neighborhood. But his time in Nam, he's seen some stuff, and he wants the war to end for the sake of the innocents on both sides. Rhodey's unit heard of the invasion, but it didn't hit anywhere close to Nam, so it felt very distant compared to their own troubles. But orders are orders. Rhodey gets a promotion he didn't ask for, and will be working with Stark Enterprises, which, despite his feelings on his relocation, makes a lot of sense to him. Tony is a fantastic idea man. When he is poking around the alien weapons, he comes up with some really out there ideas, sometimes almost like someone else is giving him tips on what they could do. Ideas that Rhodey, being much more grounded, can say, no, that's impossible, maybe in 10 or 15 years. They will end up butting heads a lot, but when they can meet somewhere in the middle, they produce solid results. After the disastrous attempt to stop a recent Atlantean invasion, Tony even integrates his own ideas about transistors into Rhodey's weapon, and Rhodey unofficially becomes the new chief of security in light of Carol Danvers' absence. While Rhodey wasn't enthusiastic about getting involved in the alien defense program, he takes his job seriously, and soon becomes suspicious of his supervisor. Where is Tony off to all the time? Sure, he has a reputation as a party boy, but from what Rhodey is hearing, Tony's social life hasn't been that active lately. Is Tony a spy? There have been lots of local reports of a blue alien lately, reports Rhodey would hear about in his current position and will want to investigate in light of 2 recent alien invasions. Scuttlebutt says this same alien, or at least one of his species, was recently seen in Afghanistan. If this alien keeps popping up in incidents near Stark Industries, is it somehow connected to Tony's disappearances? Is Tony somehow involved in Khrushchev being recently revealed to be an alien? Rhodey doesn't have any proof, but if his suspicions go far enough, will he be brave enough to voice his concerns to Arno Stark the next time he comes in for a cursory inspection? I imagine Arno isn't quite as open about working with aliens as Tony has recently become. Or will Rhodey learn to trust Tony even though he knows the man is keeping secrets? Who can say? Rhodey becomes friendly with Carol Danvers, as the government wants to extend an olive branch to Prince Kamar's new regime in Atlantis, so they don't have to worry about enemies from above and below. While there are diplomats better equipped for this, Rhodey is already familiar with Stark's setup, fairly embedded in America's defensive plans, as was Carol before her forced biological readjustment. And with her and Colonel Jameson stuck in Atlantis, they're ideally placed to keep things civil between surface and sea. So while they can't do much more than make bedroom eyes at each other, they kind of form a relationship. And that's it. Rhodey almost ends up in similar circumstances he was in on Earth 616, working for Stark, armored hero, relationship with Carol Danvers. I really enjoyed this one, just like I enjoyed all the other others in this series, which you can watch at the bottom of my If I Wrote playlist. You don't have to watch all of them, but as is the case with this one, maybe it will make more sense if you do. I'll be back in the future with something else, so until then, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.